Well, my name is Herman Williams, Jr. They call me the Chief. Now you'll say, why do they call you the Chief? Well, I was Chief of the Fire Department for Baltimore City for almost 10 years. And before then, well, I mean, I could start back at day one.
Why don't we start back at day one?
And day one goes way back. Well, actually, I've been a member of MECU for 60 years. I'll tell you how I got started. I started in the fire department back in 1954, February 1954. And one of the first things that class that we were told, said, you know, after they broke us all in the second day, they said, now, here's what you have to do. You have to join the credit union. I said, credit union? What's a credit union? I had never heard of a credit union. So the instructor explained, he says, well, what it is, he says, it's like a bank, but it's not a bank. He says, actually, we're better than a bank. But even at that time, the Municipal Employees Credit Union wasn't that old in Baltimore. So he says, so the guys started asking questions, well, you know, how do we join this? He says, well, you have to put $5 in, say, and you automatically, you'll be a member. And then you can save, like every pay, whatever you want to. So I jumped at that. I put my $5 in, and every payday, well, it was automatic, you know, withdrawal from your pay, but every day, every payday I started saving. I started saving $5. And through the years, I said I worked for the city for 48 years, but just about every year that I worked for the city of Baltimore, the employees received some sort of a pay raise, which now I think they go 5, 10 years and don't get a raise, but back then, every year you got some sort of a raise. And what I'd do, I would take half of that raise and then put that credit union, and I'd live on the other half. So you can imagine when I retired, I had 48 years with the city. When I retired, and through all those years I bought houses, I bought cars, I did a lot of things. But you can imagine, I had a right good nest egg in the credit union when I retired. So that's how I got my credit union start. It was, and actually I think I fell in love with the credit union because it was so easy. You could make a loan, you know, and then back in the early days, there wasn't many places that African Americans could make a loan, so the credit union was ideal. Mm-hmm. Heck, you could borrow upwards of whatever, $400 or $500, maybe $1,000.
And at that time, was it the credit union open to all members of the city, or was it just the fire department?
It was just city employees, all city employees. Of course, the fire department at that time had over 2,000 employees, and everyone belonged. Mm-hmm.
And what was the kind of racial makeup of the city employees then, and how did that play out in the credit union early on? I
imagine, back in 1954, the racial makeup was probably 15%, maybe 15. It wasn't 20 of African Americans, you know, and white. Mm-hmm.
And then sort of in the credit union's governance, sort of what was that like when you began, and kind of what motivated you to get involved to the point where you eventually became a board member?
Well, actually, I was satisfied just being, you know, saving my money. But in the early days, to be a board member, you had to be a city official of sorts. So every major city department, every police, fire, health, school teachers, all departments had they reserved the spot on the board for either the police commissioner or the fire chief or the superintendent of schools or the mayor's chief deputy, all large organizations, city organizations. The head of the organization would be a member of the board. Mm-hmm.
And was that sort of something that was written into the bylaws, or was that something that just that was kind of expected?
Oh no, it was kind of expected. I mean, and so what happened at some point in time, I had become Commissioner of Transportation, which was a very large city department. And so I wanted to be a member too, because I would look at what the credit union did, and not, I don't want to throw any bad light on the credit union, but it seemed as though those folks that were in charge, or board members, it seemed to me that their main interest was going on seminars and, you know, just having a good time, if you will. So I decided, hey, I'd like to have some of that myself. So I put pressure on some folks to, since all the other agency heads were on the board, I wanted to be on the board. And so I was allowed to become a member. And so it was years before I became chairman of the board. But after I became a member, then I realized that this is serious business. When I was on the board, you became a member of the board, that is. This is a serious business. It's a big responsibility. And I was not the sort that wanted to take trips or wanted to go to seminars just to be going. I saw that there needed to be some changes in the way that the board members were picked.
And what year was it that you first got on the board?
It was in 1988. I had been Commissioner of Transportation for a year, and I'm looking at these at the board, and, you know, I say, heck, well, I'm a commissioner. You know, so fire chiefs on there, and others. I want a spot, and so I made it happen.
And what kind of, was that a period of more generally kind of transition for the credit union? Like, was it growing quickly, or what was that era kind of like?
No, it was, well, at that time our assets were $360 million, which we were the big dogs. You know, I mean, even around the country. I mean, there were one or two large credit unions, but Baltimore City Municipal Employees Credit Union was a large credit union with $360 million asset, and so we had a little bit of a say. When I would go to a seminar, I had my badge on, the number of assets, and the number of employees. The number of people that we had, you know, that were members, and we were looked at as being one of the big credit unions.
And so so once you got on the board, what sorts of changes had kind of happened or have been implemented since you came on?
Well, I was on the board. I was on that board, for about. First of all, before I really made any changes, I got appointed to the fire chief. It was back in 1992, and somewhere once I got promoted to fire chief, the other board members wanted to make a change in the chairman, and so I was asked to take it. And of course, I really wasn't. I had no idea that I would be, you know, picked to be chairman. But so I said okay. And then when I became chairman, then some of the things that I saw that need to be changed, I immediately started to put some of those things in action. Mm-hmm. Anyway, one of the first things I did was I formed a committee of chairmen from other credit unions, unions in the area, and you know, I wasn't satisfied with. You know, people it seemed as though everybody was just satisfied with the title chairman, but nobody was really making the effort to make change. So I set up this committee and charged them with meeting, coming up with some ideas on how to change. And as a result of that, there were changes in the state, some of the state regulations that were more forward-looking. And so then I stepped back. Then one of my goals was accomplished. At least there was a chance that the credit union movement would start changing and moving in a positive direction.
What sorts of changes at that time did you see that needed to happen? This was early 90s.
Well, the first thing, I wanted more response. I wanted the chair people to have more responsibility, and I wanted them to be held for their responsibility, because it's an important job, and I wanted them to act like chair people. And I think one thing that was sort of intimidating to them, I wore a uniform. And so, and I was a no-nonsense type person. And so when the chief said something, everybody listened to the chief. And so changes were made. But still, they weren't, as far as MECU, I wanted more changes. I mean, it started back in 1992, 93, 94. We had one computer for the whole organization. And we had, you could come to the main office, make a loan, you get your check. Then you had to go across the street to a bank to cash the check. And I had a problem with that. And also, we had no branches. We just had the one main office. So I wanted some changes made.
And another question is, in terms of the field of membership, did that change over time? When it started out, it was municipal employees. Is it still that, or has that?
No, over time, that changed. Well, it had to change. So one reason, city government was starting to dwindle down a bit, and I know the fire department we had, it was over 2,000 members, and it was like we were getting to a point where cities were being strapped for money, and so some employees had to be not laid off, but just the employee, it was sort of dwindled down, and around then we had about 26,000 employees total in the city. That's a lot of employees. And for the most part, most of those people were in the Department of Public Works. And that was another good thing about the credit union. You had people working in Public Works that were not making the big salaries, minimal salary, and most of the fellows were working from payday to payday. So, they get paid on Friday, and then Monday they'd be at a loan shark trying to borrow some money. And so we put a stop to that. And on Monday they could come to the credit union and borrow a few hours, pay it off during the week or during the month, and they'd be back again. So with the employee dwindling, there had to be some changes made. Sooner or later, there would have to be some changes.
And what do you see as the role of the credit union kind of in the larger African American community? Was this credit union seen as an institution that was part of that community, or it was the state or the municipal employees community was kind of the more central?
The municipal employees were central. Mm-hmm. MECU was not really a part of the community at that time. I mean, I don't think if you asked the average person on the street a question about a credit union, they would say, "Who? What?" The first thing you think about the unions, you think about employment, you think about jobs, but the average citizen didn't know what the credit union was all about, and it was just to be a member of the credit union. That was something. When the word started getting out, credit union, or you can go borrow money. That's the first thing that comes to mind. You can borrow money, but back in those days, and somewhat still today, in order to make a loan, no matter $200 or $300, you had to have a co-maker. Mm-hmm. And it was very strict. If you didn't pay your loan, or if you got, for some reason, left city employment, then the co-makers had to repay that loan for you. I remember when I joined the credit union at the Fire Academy, there was one fellow that, as soon as he joined, he borrowed some money, and I was one of his co-makers, matter of fact. Well, he didn't make it through the graduation of the class, and so consequently he got fired, and 3 of us were left having to pay his money back. It was only $500, but you can imagine back in 1954, that was a lot of money, but still we had to pay that money back, which taught me a lesson. That was the first and only time that I ever co-signed for anyone for a loan, from the time I came to the city until I retired from the city.
So thinking about the credit union in those early years, one of the big trends in the credit union movement has been kind of the professionalization of the movement. At that point, was the credit union still fairly large and had paid staff, or was it kind of more volunteers and credit committees and that sort of thing?
Oh, no. MECU, the board members, they were one of the few in the country, I would say, that get a stipend or an honorarium for being a board member. But that really was not the reason that the average person on the board wanted to be on the board, because it didn't actually. Most people didn't know that the board even paid anything. As a matter of fact, when I went on the board, I didn't know that it was getting paid. I just wanted to be a member of that board. And I think a lot of the board members back in the early days didn't realize the due diligence that they were responsible for, But of course, when they found out you got paid, that was a little icing on the cake.
And so those early days, how did you, the character of the credit union, from the perspective of you being just kind of a member at that time, how did you feel the character of the credit union changed from when you joined in the 50s to kind of when you really got involved in the 80s with the governance?
Well, there was a big change. Number one, I realized my responsibility, and especially when I was made chairman, and I realized that hey, this is a big corporation, and I started looking around the table at the members that were on the board, and I didn't see the diversity on the board that I wanted. And also, I realized that we had a board of 12 people. There should be people, each one of those board members should have some expertise in handling money or in finance. And so what happened, when there was a vacancy on the board, I made sure that that person's replacement was someone, even though it was a city employee, but it was someone in the city, working for the city, that had expertise in finance. And I deliberately, it was deliberate. This is what I wanted. And when I keep saying I don't want you to think that I was running everything, but I was persuasive with the rest of the board that there had to be change. And so to make that change, as I said earlier, I appointed people to the board that had some expertise. Such as we had the mayor's chief of staff. Well, that was good because we had a direct link from the board to the mayor's office. Not that the mayor had plays no role at all with the credit union, but from a good political standpoint, it was good to be in with the mayor, because a lot of the board members were her appointments. So, or her or she or his appointment. And so we made sure that we had good representation, such as we found out that we should have someone on the board from the police department. Well, in the beginning it was the police commissioner, because the police department had 3,500 members. There should be someone on the board from the fire department. Well, the fire chief was already on the board, but the reason being that board member represented his department. And remember I said earlier, the majority of the credit unions membership were city employees. So each person that went about putting on the board were from a large agency, so they could be a direct representative of their agency. And then also I said, there should be African Americans on the board. There should be female on the board. And we went about the business of doing just that.
And so, you talk about kind of the makeup of the board. Sort of over the, between 1954 and the 1980s, there's the whole kind of period of desegregation. And how did that play out, kind of in the city and in the credit union?
Well, it was not a big role because as time went on, a lot of the city agency heads were African American, let's see, the commissioner of the education was African American, and of course I was there for the fire department, the fire chief, and then the police commissioner at one point in time was African American. The health department was not, so we wanted to make a change there. The Department of Housing was not. So those agencies that were not did not have African Americans and or female at the head. We went about the business of getting someone that worked in that department. In other words, may not have been the chief or may not have been the commissioner, but it was certainly a deputy or someone in that agency that has some knowledge of and expertise in finance. So that's a sort of got what we wanted.
And so was there ever, there's one person I've talked to in an interview he was in a sugar plant that had kind of a period of during the integration where there was some mistrust between the white workers and the black workers over the running of the credit union. Was there ever that kind of tension manifesting in it, or was that sort of, there was always a sense that this was being taken care of in a pretty solid way?
There was never any problem such as that. We have 12 members on the board, and it's a real harmonious group. Everybody. I mean, it's almost like it's hard to believe in the sense that there was never any problems. Now, mind you, I was chairman of the board. Matter of fact, I think I've been chairman 22, 23 years. So it's more or less built the board and the credit union in the way that I wanted to see it done.
And how has what's the relationship been between the sort of the board and kind of the rank and file members in terms of governance, like and participation in things like the annual meetings and things like that? What does that look like?
It looks good. The one thing that I'm not disappointed in, but we have an annual meeting. Very few people come to the meeting. Very few. That's because we're doing such a good job. So, and our members have their competence, and faith in their board members. No one ever challenges the board members, because we have elections every year. No one ever challenges them. We have an annual meeting. As a matter of fact, tomorrow is the meeting, and we'll be lucky if we get 10 outside people out of 100,000 members. So that's saying something. And they are notified well in advance, and we send them, periodicals. We send them magazines. We send them articles about the credit union. I asked somebody on the street, "Well, you coming to the meeting?" "No, you guys doing a good job." So that's the way it's worked out. Now I can tell you this. I've been saying how we went from A to almost to B. Well, we got to a point, and I believe it was in 1995 or somewhere around there. This is because Bert Hash has been chairman now 17 years. Yeah, we got to a point where I thought we were stagnated. I mean, the board, we were just not moving in the right. We were not advancing. We were doing good. We were giving a dividends back to our members every year. The members were happy. And they were getting a good dividend, 7% on their money, 7% discount. And but so they were happy. I wasn't happy. And now you may say, don't get in your mind that I was running everything, but I'm just saying I was not happy. So we decided it was time for a change at the top. And the CEO at that time retired, and so then we were in the search for a new CEO. And we did a nationwide search. We did a big search, and we wound up with Bert Hash. And that was like going from A down to Z, because immediate changes started to happen. I remember when we selected Mr. Hash, we told him one thing, and I remember I told him, listen, first thing you got to do, you got to get some computers in this building. Second thing, tired of people going across the street to get their checks cashed. The third thing, we need some branches. And Mr. Hash said, with that look on his face, says, I can do this. And from then on, it was steadily going up, up, and up. So a big change happened when we hired Mr. Hash to be the CEO and president.
So given that you've been involved all these years now, kind of looking to the future, kind of where do you see the credit union going, and what kind of what do you see its future role as being?
Well, we are very much involved in the community. And we have an outreach program that it's something you'd have to see to really believe. And I think that I know that we set the bar high for credit unions, not just in the Maryland area, Maryland, D.C., or Delaware, not just for our area, but we set the bar high for across the country. With our outreach program, employees go out to nursing homes, and we've adopted 9 schools, and we give back to the community. There's an involvement. Everywhere you look, you see MECU. In Baltimore City, everyone knows MECU. They know what MECU is. They know what we do. No, they don't come knocking on the door begging for anything. It doesn't happen that way. But it's just our involvement with the community. So you say, okay, so what do you see for the future? What do I see for the future? Well, first of all, we have built a culture. MECU has built a culture in Baltimore City and in the credit union movement that we can't go back. We have to keep going forward. How far do we want to go? Well, we've got 10 branches now. Is 10 enough? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maryland is, and out Baltimore and our surrounding counties, it's a large area. So I see the future where we have more involvement, where we get more involvement in the surrounding counties, surrounding area that is around Baltimore. I see we're not going to become a bank, but I see us as being the best credit union around. And we are, I often refer to us as we are a do-all credit union. We do it all. You want a house, you want a car, you want an investment, we do it all. And I see us making that available for everyone. You know, our motto now, if you eat, sleep, breathe in Baltimore City, pray, you can be a member of MECU. And so I just see us expanding that, and we're keeping our culture the way it is.
So that kind of expanding the field of membership, you know, what do you see? Have you or others kind of noticed a difference in the culture once, you know, rather than having the municipal employees as the common bond, expanding it to the whole sort of area? Has that changed anything from your perspective?
No, it hasn't. We have subgroups, such as hospitals, churches, you know, organizations, all belong to MECU. I've seen no change in our culture at all. As a matter of fact, we just purchased or just acquired a bank recently, which was a big step. Something that hasn't been done in the credit union movement maybe 4 or 5 times, and that's in the entire country. And that acquisition and the smoothness of which it happened, you wouldn't know it happened unless I told you.
Well, what was the kind of backstory behind that? How did that come to be? Because normally you hear about, you know, maybe a small credit union being merged, but never a bank. Well,
this bank happened to be one of the first African American banks in the city, and much smaller than us. And so we saw a chance to really help the community more, because the bank had reached a level where they could not move much higher, much further, and so they were acceptable to the idea, and so we acquired them. And as I said before, you asked the question, did you see a change? Did we see a change? No. That bank's now part of us. It's one of our branches. A lot of their employees of the bank are now MECU employees, and they've just moved right in as if they've been there all their lives.
And in terms of the kind of, cultivating the sort of the leadership in the organization, kind of finding the people to sort of be coming in and kind of having that ready to go. Is that something that MECU has found to be a fairly easy thing, or does it tend to be kind of generations, and then as some folks move out, then it's sort of difficult to find new folks to become involved as volunteers and other stuff?
Well, we don't have volunteers because all the board members are. You're speaking of the board members, or
committee members,
or committee members. No, what we do, I wouldn't say what we try to do. What we do is that if a board member, for whatever reason, has to leave the board in retirement, sometimes they just get to the point where I've been there now long enough. When that person leaves, their replacement is someone along the same line of that they were. So, in other words, if for instance, the fire chief retired, well, in his place on the board was the person was his aide. So it's not necessarily the fire chief anymore, but we have fire department representation. The same thing with the police department. At one time, the police commissioner was on the board, but a member decided to run, a police department member decided to run against the commissioner, and he won. And now he's on the board. But so we don't have any problem getting the right person. I mean, I see to that.
So in that particular instance, was that sort of a what was seems like kind of an interesting story. What was the backstory to the
police department?
The internal police department kind of contesting over that seat?
Well, what happened, there was a little friction, I believe, between the union and the way that the police union felt that the chief was doing his job, and so he challenged him, and the rank and file policeman voted for the new person to take the chief's spot.
And was that voting? Are the board seats set up so that it would, if there's this police department seat, was it just the police officers voting in that election, or was it members from other parts of the credit union too kind of had a say? There were
members. At that time we had like maybe 70,000 members, but anyone had the opportunity to vote for that. And of course, the officer that took the commissioner's spot was a very popular person. Everyone knew him, so he got the votes. So it was nothing that the credit union didn't have anything to do with it, but the person was well accepted by the credit union board members also. So it worked out just fine. See, we have an annual election every year. At least 3 or 4 board members are up for election, and everyone is notified that those seats are open. And if you were a member, you say, "Well, I think I'd like to be on that board." You could definitely run for it, and if you got the most votes, then you'd be a member. So
how often? That was one example, but how often have there been those competitive things, and is that really kind of like one of the few examples, or
that only happened once? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because now every year when they have the annual election, the sitting board members naturally are running, but no one challenges them. It's amazing. But still, we have to go through that process. It's a law. We have to do that, and all the members. We have 100,000 members now, but everyone knows exactly who's running. They know, and but no one challenges.
So any final thoughts or reflections or topics we haven't touched on you think are kind of important to know about the kind of history of the organization and your role in it?
Well, one good thing, big thing, even though we have 12 individual board members, right? I have never detected in the 20 odd years I've been chairman of the board, I've never detected any friction between any board member. That's number one. And number two, what is so unique about MECU, is that the relationship that the board and the chairperson and have with the CEO and the president and his staff. We have 2 board meetings a month, and each board member, each board meeting, all the board members are there, plus the president's staff. And it's almost like you want to pinch yourself and say, well, is somebody going to fight with somebody? Don't agree with me just because I say it. And that's not really the case. But the relationship that the board and staff has, I haven't seen it anywhere. Honestly, I go to seminars around the country, and actually, when there's fighting going on, the chairperson doesn't get along with the president, or the chairman is looking over the president's shoulder or sticking his nose in, and that's not what the credit union is all about. Mr. Hash, who is the president, and myself, we have one of the best working relationships that I know of anywhere. Do we agree all the time? No, sometimes we don't. But it's not a fight. It's a disagreement, and we get together. We bring everything back to the middle. It's just amazing.
So, a final question that just came to me as you were saying that. You were talking about, it's not what credit unions are all about. Mm-hmm. To you, what are credit unions all about? What is the core of what the credit union purpose?
People. It's helping people. I don't think I could say it in this. Couldn't add any more words to that. Credit union is all about. We can't be everything, but we can be almost everything for everybody. And if everything that we do, the first thing that comes to our mind, the most important thing is how and what are we doing to help people, and that's important. And and I say it's that culture, because if it's not for our members, then there's no credit union. And we're not here to say no. You come in, you say, okay, I want a mortgage. I need a mortgage, X amount of dollars. Well, you're gonna have to go through just what you have to, to get a loan. But if this first time you come in, if you're not something's wrong with your credit, we're not going to just say, okay, we can't do it, goodbye, go out the door. It doesn't work that way. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure you get the money that you need to buy your house, to buy your car, send your child to college, and that's what it's all about. With me, and I know I see the same sentiment in the rest of the board members. And you get that feeling, hey, they're there because they want to help people. And that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing those stories. And
you're welcome. Sometimes I get kind of, with me, it's a good thing you walk down the street, because everybody here knows me. It's far cheap. I've been retired 13, 14 years now. But they also know that, hey, I'm a credit union. And it's a good thing you walk down the street, people hollering, hi, Chief, hi. And or somebody, doesn't matter, I just got a call a moment ago on the phone line. It was the owner of our great baseball team called in, want to go to opening day baseball game. Nothing I can do with him. He can make a loan. The guy's a billionaire, But that's a good feeling that you know that you help somebody. And just about all my life, it's been just that. And I started out driving streetcars and buses, and Department of Public Works, and Commissioner of Transportation, Fire Chief. Everything I've done all my life is helping people. And that's one of the reasons I think I like MECU. Because just yesterday, about our outreach program, we practically adopted a young lady She died last week, 102 years old. She didn't need any money. She didn't need, but it was just the fact that here was this lady that we just took, you know, pulled her in, and she passed away. But it was helping. You know, if she needed to go to the doctor, we took her. She didn't have any loans, any big loans with the credit union. That's not what it's about. But or going out to a nursing home or something, and sitting with the elderly, dancing with them, having a party with them. Now you say, what's that got to do with credit union? Yeah, they didn't have any loans, but it was giving back to the community. So, you know, credit unions can give back so much. It doesn't have to be writing a check up, but you've got to be, you know, you've got to give back to the community. We call ourselves municipal employees. We're not all municipal employees. I would imagine now we have more of the hundred-some thousand members that we have. I would venture to say that maybe only 20% of that 100 are city employees. The rest are SEG groups, family members. You know, it's just a movement that I wouldn't have traded for anything. And I feel honored to have been here this long and to have been this, you know, as the chairman of the board. I stop and say, 23 years. I don't think you'll talk to another credit union where the chairperson has been around that long. I used to tell Mr. Hash, I wish somebody would challenge me for this job. But, you know, so we must be doing something good.